Welcome to the Mind Circus podcast. I'm Karen Bartos, your host. And today we have a very special guest who is not only an amazing coach, but one of my dear friends. Kristen and I met at a networking event before COVID and immediately hit it off. I joke with her that we are sisters from a different mother. Kristen Ricupero from Financial Fitness Coaching has been instrumental in helping me implement Profit First in my business, which is a game changer. She and her team help both individuals on the personal level and small businesses and entrepreneurs. So, if you love all things money and mindset related, you're going to love this episode. So, let the circus begin.
Welcome to the Mind Circus podcast, where we uncover the topsy-turvy thoughts of those we call creatives. The Mind Circus can be entertaining and daunting, but we need to uncover ways to be the ringmaster of our own mind circus. If you want to hear real stories from creatives who've plunged into the black abyss of the mind circus and managed to become the ringmaster, then join our host, Karen Bartos, a photographer, entrepreneur, and creative ringleader, as she'll ask direct questions to help listeners understand and be inspired to master their own mind circus and reach new levels of success. So find a seat and let's be part of the circus. Now here's your host, Karen Bartos.
Hey, Kristen, I want to thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast today. I'm super excited to dive into our topic today.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about Kristen Ricupero and what do you do?
Well, thank you, Karen, again. I'm super excited to talk today about money and money mindset in particular, but I am a financial coach, and we are financial coaches for both personal finances as well as business finances, which is a lot of coaches will dabble in both, but I think where we really specialize is we look at the holistic approach. So we are talking not just tactical and strategical, we are talking about mindset. With our business owners, we absolutely have to talk about their personal finances also, because one touches the other and you can't just make more and throw it away out the window. So we really take a holistic approach into our finances.
Yeah, I love that. And, I've worked with you, of course, and you have saved me lots of stress over money. And I love implementing Profit First in my business. But since the podcast is all about the mind circus and the stories we tell ourselves, I want to dive into the mindset of money. And can you talk to us today about what you see? Are there certain themes, or what do you see when it comes to my money mindset?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, this is one area where I say people think that it's wonky or it's like, that this is like the magical part of things. And I will say that, like, I used to think it was a little bit woo to dig into like the mindset. And I have done definitely a lot of studying. The psychology of money and the psychology behind like how we think and pricing. And there's just so much that I truly believe that if we don't fix our mindset around money, if we don't fix how we think about it, what we're capable of, and really dig into that, it won't matter if you're handed the best budget, the best mentor, the best business plan, the best any of those types of things, you will still not succeed. You will find a way to pull yourself back. And I think this is one key area where, as far as trends, like I see a lot of people who need help in this area, but they think they just need a better budget. They think they just need a better plan. They think they just need to make more money. And that is a money script, is one of the most popular. But the truth is that they need to believe that they can handle money with ease. They need to believe that money isn't everything, that money is the tool to get them where they want to go. And they really need to work on that mindset just as much as the budget and the plan and all of the other parts.
Oh my gosh, that is so good. So are there certain, like, can you put us into buckets in terms of like what you see? Like somebody might have this type of mindset and someone has this type of mindset. Is there a trend that you see?
Yeah. So let's back up for just a second. And where does your money mindset come from? Right. So we all have a money story.
Yeah. Like goes back to like how you think about money as a child, or right?
Absolutely. It starts when you're a child, and some of the main things, I don't say the biggest, but like some of your biggest stories are formed as a child, like what you hear your parents saying, what you don't hear them saying. Do they fight about money all the time? Do they talk about it? Are they sharers? Are they givers? Are they not? Are they hush hush? Like what you experience, that starts to become your financial flashpoint. And so your financial flashpoints are what happens to you throughout your life, but again, often as a child, not solely as a child. And that starts to shape your money story. That starts to shape like what you believe. So two people can come from a very similar background, like socioeconomically speaking, but what they've experienced in their household will shape their money beliefs and shape their money scripts, if you will, and what they believe. So let's just say, for example, you know, you grew up in a household, and let's just say that your mom and dad, they fought about money all the time, and dad would come home and be like, where'd that go? Or, they're fighting over these things. You start to somewhere in your mind possibly believe that, well, when they talk about money, it's a fight. So when you get married, you may have this inclination to just not talk about money and be like, ooh, I don't want to fight with my spouse about this, so we won't talk about it. Whereas let's say that you are a partner then, and your spouse may have grown up in a different household to where they talked about it all the time, or they were very giving and generous, or they talked about, growing wealth, or and maybe it's not even that, but just, a different version. And so when they get married, and if you're not having these conversations prior to, but they have this story that says, well, we should be talking about money. We should be talking about budgeting. We should be talking about saving and saving for our future. And if you two haven't had these conversations about how you grew up and what you believe, you're going to have some major external conflicts in addition to your internal money story conflicts. And that's when we kind of explode. So there is no like, oh, you come from a background, whether it's you come from a certain background, you're going to have a certain money story, because it really affects people differently depending on what flashpoints that they've experienced. And I find it fascinating at the end of the day. And also overwhelmingly confusing when you meet somebody, like, to dig into all of these things as the financial coach.
Well, and what is fascinating about this is you're taking two story money mindsets, and then if you're in a marriage or in a partnership, now you've got to both
Absolutely. And
dive
so
down.
learning how to talk to each other about what do you two believe, and what was right in those money stories or wrong, or again, like, what did you get out of it? Because it doesn't matter. You could grow up in the same types of household and you still pull out different aspects about it, right?
Yeah. And then if you're a business owner, that kind of spills over into your business, because now you're not only managing your own money mindset, but you have to think about your spouses or your partners. And it's all like interwoven.
It is. It's like a tangled web we weave. So there are four main money scripts or money beliefs that, like, a lot of your beliefs will fall into one of these four categories. So one is money avoidance. I'll come back to what these are. So the four are money avoidance, money focus, money status, and money vigilance. Okay. So the four main areas, the short of it is that money avoidance is more or less like money is evil. Those who have money, they're greedy. I shouldn't want to have money because it's a bad thing, right? And so a lot of it, sometimes this is developed out of misunderstanding from church and religion, and misunderstanding some givings within, biblical. Sometimes this is just, again, through an experience, like, oh, the rich guy next door was mean. And so, lived in a nice house. He was a mean guy. We put those things together. And so that's, there's multiple stories you can be telling yourself inside your head that is a pretty common one for a lot of people who did grow up in a lower economic area, to come out with a money avoidance type of mindset or beliefs that fall within that category. The next one is money focus. And that is really where it's kind of, I need more money. If I only had more money, I would be happy, right? How many people say that? If I only, and I can sit here and like, money does not buy happiness. Money buys things, things. Money buys freedom, money buys options, money buy like you have more of those things, but like money does not buy happiness, right? But that money focus is like, if I have more money, I'll be happier. And so they really focus on having more. Money status is probably one of the least common that I see, but money status, is more of when someone believes that if it's more expensive, it's a better product, right? Or I will only buy this brand. I will only buy a purse if it's Gucci or Prada or Michael Kors, or I think those are top ones. That's not
So
a
these
thing.
people are not buying generic at the grocery store.
Right. Like that would be awful. And it's they truly believe like that's bad, like that they're bad, they're less than, right? Like, and so that's like a money status. They believe that status is absolutely associated with what you wear, what you have, what you buy, what you drive, all of those things. And it's held on to strongly. And then the last one is money vigilance. And money vigilance can be good to a certain point. Money vigilance is like, we should be saving our money and not spending it all. We should be, doing due diligence. We need to do a budget. But too much money vigilance is also bad. That's where we get into scarcity. And that's when we come into, like, now I have all this money, but I can't enjoy it. So what's the point of the money? If you can't enjoy what you're doing. And sometimes those people even become like the hardworking farmers that we all know that are just stocking it up and they don't know how to enjoy it. And they just work from sun up to sundown and go to another job because they believe they have to just keep on working and it's not right or fair to spend that money. So all of the hundreds of beliefs that you could think about money would typically fall into one of those four categories somewhere. And it's very common that people will have a combination of like the two scripts.
Oh, really? So you can have a combination.
Yes. So, a lot of times people will have like a little bit of avoidance, but they also have a money focus. So I believe it's bad, but man, if I only had a little bit more, I'd be that good person and I could be happy and I would be giving. And so they might have, that's where there is then some internal and or external, but this is like where you may have some internal conflicts then about what to do. And this to go all of the way is now where people start to have, trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but they self-sabotage.
Okay.
So now all of a sudden, like doing great, right? I'm doing great in business, doing awesome. Everything's rolling. But all of a sudden this money avoidance creeps in and this is bad. I shouldn't have any. I don't deserve to have this money. I don't want to be that person. And internally, we will then you will see those people self-sabotage. This happens all the time. People who are constant have like spending issues and impulse. A lot of times there will be some of these conflicts that will come and cause that.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. I mean, it's all right. So
It's
you have these.
fascinating.
It is. And I think, we're learning more about the psychology of money, as you said. And okay, so we've got these four categories. And obviously you're working with people and you see these trends. How do you get them is there an exercise you get them to walk through to determine where they might fall? Do you do that with your clients to get them to not quote unquote label themselves, to be aware of it? I guess we're being aware of how I think about money. Is there something you do with your clients?
There is. And so we don't do this with all of our clients. And there are tests that you can give them, that will put them into these categories and then you can help dig in further there. We don't do that. But we do have some different exercises where we will help them dig into their limiting beliefs. And so the limiting beliefs are one of these, money stories, money scripts, and their conflicts of, again, I don't deserve money, or what things like really resonate. So we have a list of like, I think it's 50 positive beliefs and 50 negative beliefs, and really just ask them to go through and think about it and focus and say, what resonates with you? And this is where you don't want to filter yourself.
Just think about,
like,
right? Just answer.
You're like, oh, and then you don't want to be like, oh, that's bad that I think that. Like, no, that it's not good, but it's good to be aware. So at this stage, like you said, like having the awareness that this is there is the only way that you can really work on fixing it. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So once we talk about, it's part of the mind circus. You have to become aware of what's going on in your circus as it relates to money. So how do you dive in with your clients and get them to, okay, not only be aware of it, but how do you fix it? How do you work on it? Because I'm sure it's not something that's a one and done fix. It's something that you, number one, have to be aware of. But then how do you work on it? Are there tools that you give your clients? How does that
Yeah.
look?
So one of the things that we suggest is that after we identify a few of these, and we don't dig super deep into this. We do, but because when we work with clients, we're usually on a timeline and we're working on tactical, strategical, we're working on like planning, or all these things. So we'll usually give them an exercise and ask them to repeat these things at home. So I truly believe in affirmations, and visualization as a huge part of how you can work on these limiting beliefs that you have and turn them around. And so we'll usually say, okay, let's identify like the top 5 limiting beliefs that you have. And of these 5, let's write them down and let's come up with a contrasting statement. Now, it doesn't have to be completely the opposite direction of like, again, just simply money is evil. It doesn't have to be like, oh, money is wonderful. And you don't have to go completely contrasting. You can go to a neutral state.
Okay.
Sometimes that's a much easier jump because you have to be able to get your mind to believe this. This is where the scientific stuff comes in with it, that your brain has to learn that this is a true thing. And Mel Robbins does a fantastic job of articulating what happens inside of your brain here. But so if it's easier to go to a neutral standpoint, then from money is evil to it's okay to have money. It's okay to want to have money. It's okay to want things. It's okay to want to be better than I am today. Then that might be easier to adopt. And I suggest that we do our affirmations and visualization together in the morning and at night. So your brain is most receptive to new information. Like when you're going to sleep, your brain is kind of it's winding down, right? So your
Right.
brain is going to remember the last things you did typically, and that's the first thing in the morning. So you're training it. You're exercising your brain here. And by doing that, think about this. When have you gone to bed late or you had a big event the next day and you're like, it's so late. I have to go to sleep. I have to go to sleep. I have to get up early. I'm going to be so tired. And you're telling yourself this thing over and over. So whatever time you fall asleep, it doesn't matter. When you wake up, I don't care if you got 6, 8, 10 hours of sleep, you are tired because you told your brain at night that you were going to be tired. So you wake up tired.
Mm.
Your affirmations and visualization can work the same way, but they can work together. Like you're telling yourself and letting your brain see you in this light. Like, what does it look like to be okay with money? What does it look like to be not stressed about it? Like, and usually this is a direction we'll help take clients is like to a level of, what would feel really good, that's acceptable to you, like, to not stress about it, not fight about money, be able to make the investments in my business that I want to with, a plan. And so those are the things we'll have them do their affirmations and visualization around. And again, preferably in the morning at night. If not, posting it all over the place and as often as you possibly can. But as you know, as a business owner, there's so many things to do in a day. Systems are best to put in place.
Yeah. And I love this because I know I've heard other people talk about, if you're trying to solve a problem, ask your brain that before you go to bed.
Yes, I've heard that too.
And your subconscious is going to go to work on it while you sleep. So I think, and I know we don't completely understand the power of the brain. We're just beginning to understand it. But I love that you do that before you go to bed and when you get up in the morning. So you're
Yes.
just kind of retraining your brain.
Yep. Just slowly and regularly, consistently, right? So you and I have talked a million times over in different things, whether it's about money or weight loss or anything else, that where we focus grows, right? Like, and so if you build that, I am going to focus on working on my money mindset and my finances, and you're determined, then nothing is going to stop you. Then continue to focus on that. It's going to help you make those changes because it's not, again, this isn't this magical woo-woo thing like, ooh, I say that I believe in money's going to fall from the sky and it's going to fall from the sky, right? Like that's not how this works. This isn't magic. This is by believing that you can do it, by believing that this is okay, you'll start to take actions that are going to be in alignment with it being okay. You're going to start to take actions that are going to ask for more money, or you're going to raise your prices and feel good about it. You're going to, save more and think that like it's great to have a little nest egg. It's great to have a savings. And so, yeah, we don't understand it, but Jim Quick and Limitless is a book that I highly recommend. I think it's so powerful. It's not money mindset, but it's mindset, and the power of your brain. And
Okay, no, I think he
yeah,
was on Mel Robbins. Is he the guy who memorizes names? Like he memorize a room full of names and then like repeat them back to you.
he probably is because he basically had a brain injury as a child and was
Yep,
told more or less I mean, I don't remember the exact story. It's been a while since I read it, but he more or less was told he'd be dumb, or like he was not going to become anything. And yeah,
that
like the
is the same
power
guy.
of the brain.
He fell and hit his head on a radiator in school. That's the same
That's
guy.
it. Yes, that's it.
And
Um,
and it too, like he was told these things, like we're told from other people, you know, you talk about
and
stories, like someone might say to your face, you're horrible with money, and so you're going to take that story and internalize it and you're going to own it. And, I think not only do experiences shape your money story, but what people tell you.
Absolutely. And so take that into kids. We have a lot of conversations of like how to raise money smart kids. And my kids are 5 and 7. And so you really have to watch that language. And it's everything from telling them like, oh, you're so lazy, right? Like, like you're trying to motivate them in the old school mom and dad way. And like, but then they're going to think they're lazy. You tell them, that, oh, you don't talk about money, but you don't maybe give a little more concept around like what is okay, what's not okay, what's normal, what's abnormal. Um, all those are what they're going to take with them. And remember that mom or dad said those things. So yes, absolutely what people tell you just as much as your experiences.
Well, okay. So my kids are grown and out of the house, as you know, and, your kids are blessed. They truly are that you do what you do. I think about what I told my kids and yeah, I messed that up, but
Yeah,
they're doing well as
they're doing
adults. But I
well.
mean,
Yes. Yes, there is no mess up. There is no
no,
failure. There's only lessons to be learned, right?
there's only
Like,
feedback. That's right. But I want to
yep.
back up to what you said about once you work on your money mindset, you become aware. But I think that awareness opens another door where you can look for opportunities to, you know, further that money goal that you have. And so I think it's, about being aware of your money story, but then looking for opportunities to fix that money mindset, to work on it. Like you said,
Yes.
there's so much power behind the mind, but if you don't put in the work, and look for those opportunities to do, work, whatever it is, it's just not all going to happen up here. You have to be willing to put in the work.
Yes, 100%. And I think we were talking about this earlier. I don't think I said it, when we were recording, but you can have the best budget in the world. But if your mindset doesn't believe you can do it, that you can save, that you can get out of this hole, that you're in a mess, whatever you're telling yourself, you're not going to get it. I can build a budget for anybody and quote unquote tell them what to do. And I won't, because we also talk about values. And our values will shape where we spend and how we should be spending in those things. But um, I can build a budget that's going to get you out of the hole or whatever that looks like, out of debt or save money or build wealth. But then you have to be able to do those things. Your behavior is more than 80% of this game when it comes to money, too. It's your mind and your behavior. It's about so much less than that math and how much you make, because we see families and small business opportunities who are on the lower ends of the spectrum who do phenomenal because they're very powerful in what they believe in their capabilities and all of that. And we see families, I mean, quite honestly, we work with families in the high six-figure range as well, who struggle over and over and over again because it's back to the behaviors.
Oh my gosh. And I find that fascinating as well, that you mean to tell me that people who are making close to $1 million are struggling? Like,
The highest clients we have are making 600 plus a year. And yes, I mean, again, they come to us struggling, not knowing what to do, how to get out of holes that they've created, and usually they've got overwhelming debt that is trashing that cash flow at that point. Like, so if they're making 30, 40, $50,000 a month, their debts sometimes are 20, 30,000, but their lifestyles also, they've got a six to $10,000 mortgage and, multiple cars. And so this is where FOMO is a real thing. Social media. I mean, I could talk about this all for days and hours about these things are real. And, those highlight reels that we see on everybody's Instagram and Facebooks, and they legit are, they're reels, they're highlight reels. And those people, your neighbor that just went to Disney or just bought a brand new car or lives in the $1 million home, very well 82% likelihood that they are struggling financially as well. And we just don't know it. You don't know it. You think they're so much better. They've got the money. Again, that mind circus of yours is going off like, oh, if I had her money, I'd do this.
Yes. And so it's all smoke and mirrors.
A lot of it is smoke and mirrors. There's absolutely people who have built wealth or do well, but the truth is, more often than not, people who are doing well don't show it. And so this is a great book, The Psychology of Money. Is that one on there? Yeah, Morgan Housel. That is really one of the top books I can recommend to anybody who's interested in just learning more about truly building wealth. I will tell you that more people who actually have real money, like again, a higher net worth, so assets versus their liabilities, and they are not struggling, they look like average everyday Joes. They are driving an average car. They are driving, now I'm not saying they don't have fun, they don't do vacations, they don't do these things, but you're not going to typically pick that person out. They're not usually the person driving the sports car and the Ferrari and, again, walking on Rodeo Drive with all of the bags.
Right. Oh, and what I love about this is, okay, you've been there, done that. Like, I'd love to,
Yes.
if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your own personal story, because, it's one thing to work with a coach who has never struggled with weight or with money, but, you are the real deal. You have been there, you have done there. Tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Sure. So it was back in 2013. I was still single at the point, no kids. Dave and I were dating, but not married. I was working a W-2 job, made good money for a single woman. I had a townhouse that I owned, and I was buried in debt, again, buried for me. And that is relative to everybody. But I was so overwhelmed. I made 50,000 plus per year. So for single in 2013, that was actually pretty fair. Um, but, it came to a point where I had this, like, I was living by payments, so I got rid of one payment. I think I paid off a personal loan or I paid off a car. And then I went out and I was like, oh, I opened up a $300 payment. I can go take on another one. Like, I think, so I paid off a credit card or something and I bought a car, and a used car, but still, it's like living in this mindset. And it came down to the point where my credit cards were full. My personal line of credit was full. I had taken a personal line of credit, pay off my credit cards a few years earlier, doing that whole like, oh, I'll quote unquote pay off my debt with other debt, which is just moving debt. But I didn't know where my groceries are going to come from. And I certainly didn't want to go home at 30 plus years old and cry home to mom and be like, I can't buy groceries for myself this week. Again, inflation wasn't what it was. Like, groceries a week would cost me like $40, $45. It was very different than even 10 years later here. And so that was my breaking moment. I started looking for second jobs. I started figuring I will do whatever it's going to take to do it. Well, I started getting a second job at a gym. I quit it pretty quickly because it was a dirty gym and it was really close to my house, but I was like, I'll do something else. I started selling everything I had. I started really diving deep into money, podcast, books, literacy. And that's one of my other big tips is like, you can only change what you feel comfortable understanding and like change well. So I think financial literacy is a really big thing for anybody really struggling with money mindset. I think that just diving into financial literacy can really help you. And to get it from everybody. So don't just listen to Susie Orman, or don't just listen to Dave Ramsey, or don't just listen to Ramit. Listen to all of them. I can never say his last name right, so I don't. But listen and read portions of it all, because you're going to find everybody's got a different, like, this is the right system, but it's not. We really need to dig into values. They all have a lot of the same valid major points, and all of them, and I've read, I don't even know, dozens and dozens now of like finance books, but everything will lead back to the same thing, that if you're focused on, getting things over here, that's going to deter from your wealth at the end of the day. We want to focus on, what kind of lifestyle you want and how can you have that and still, live below your means no matter what you're making, and just focusing on building a life and a future versus things at the end of the day. So it took me about, my stories on my website. And I always say the numbers start to fade, but the feelings don't ever go away. Like laying in bed at night worrying about money and how am I going to do this? How am I going to get groceries? I can't imagine if I had children, here we are so many years later and still had these worries, laying at night. And my husband and I talk all the time about like, we are so fortunate and so blessed. And we work hard. Like this isn't luck, but that is not a fight that we have. That is not a concern that we have. Those are things that we feel very confident with every move that we make. They're calculated. We do both own our businesses and, we run them very similar to our lifestyle. Frugal, but invest in the things that are important to us, invest in people, invest in our future.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like 3 years later, 2 to 3 years later, I had all the debt paid off by nickel and diming, a little bit of strong money vigilance. And then I had to recreate my own mindset coming out from such a strong money vigilance where it wasn't okay to spend money ever on myself to it is okay. And I think you and I were like chatting one day. I was like, I bought indoor sneakers. And I was so proud of myself. I spent $60 on indoor sneakers. But like that is really big for me to come out of that money vigilance and to spend money on myself and be okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, you work hard, Kristen. You should buy yourself indoor sneakers.
Right?
Oh, but that's what I love about your story because you've been there, done that. And, I know you take your kids on great vacations but you have saved for them, you have budgeted for them. You have come out way stronger on the other side. I love how you help people. Um,
And
and then
those are
so when
just,
did you get married? When you got married, was the debt gone?
my personal debt was gone. He did not have personal debt. We cash flowed our wedding together because that was on us. So we had just a small wedding that we budgeted very tightly for 100 plus people, family and close friends. And then we actually paid off the first house that we were living in. It was a rental of his that he had bought several years prior to on his business property at that time. We paid off that house very, very quickly when we moved into it. And so we got to live mortgage free, saving up for what we thought would be our forever home that we're in now.
Yeah, and there's a story behind that. Maybe that'll be a podcast down the road. But all right,
Yes.
so you've been there, done that. So for anybody who's listening, maybe on a personal level, maybe not so much the business level, what piece of advice, I know you mentioned, money literacy. Is there another piece of advice you would give them to maybe give them that push to not stay stuck? Some little step they can make beyond, the literacy. What would you say to them?
So the other one I would say is practicing gratitude for everything. By practicing gratitude and focusing on what you do have. And I mean, again, it can go everything from I woke up in a really warm bed, I have a dog to cuddle with or a cat, or, again, I do have a roof over my head. I've got a month of whatever it is, kids, family, health. Focus on the smallest things, but focus on your gratitude. And by focusing on our gratitude, it allows us, again, where we focus grows. And so we don't focus on the negative and what we don't have. And that in itself can spur a positive and growth mindset in itself.
Yeah. So I don't know. Have you read the Gap and the Gain book yet?
Yes, I finished it in December and I loved every bit of it.
Yeah. It's sort of that same concept that, are you living in the gap or the gain? And if you can take a couple minutes and be grateful for what you have, you are living in the gain. And I think and it's so easy. It's easy to get sucked down. We're bombarded on so many different levels about,
Yeah.
we have a span.
What's wrong?
Yes.
Yes,
So
or anything can be phrased in both ways. And I'm truly seeing that, in so many different levels. But, I had a conversation this morning that we're grateful some things happened when they happened because it gave us some better opportunities. And it took a lot of time to come in and to frame that gain. But, the truth is that, in that book, he even talks about a family who lost a child, I believe, or even multiple, and like how they framed a gain out of it, and Holocaust survivors. And now that's powerful. That
Yes.
is a whole new level of being able to frame something. But just even going from the crap, it's raining again today, to wow, we don't have to, our farmers aren't going to worry about crops this year, and things like that.
Oh my gosh, that is so good. So as we wrap up here, I want to ask you a couple questions. When did you start? When did you launch your financial coaching business?
I started in 2016 and I was full-time at 2018.
Okay, so about 8 years.
Yeah, I was like just dabbling for a couple of years, friends and family, and then I realized it could be a real thing. And, that's
And
what I
it
went.
is a real
And
thing.
it's a real thing, absolutely.
So, what advice, 2024 Kristen, what would you give to the 2018 Kristen? What advice would you give her?
Oh my gosh. Again, speaking just about the Mind Circus, I have come so far since 13 to 18 to 24. I can't even fathom. You would have told me in 2018 that I would have hired a coach or two, verging on the second one, and that I would have the business I have today, the flexibility, the freedom. It doesn't mean it's always pretty and wonderful and roses, but I would have told you you're nuts. You told 2010 Chris, and I would have been like, you're off your rocker. But I think 24 would tell 2018 Kristen to not focus so much on everybody else. And I still did, and it's still easy to, and it's still hard not to, but it's something I've really worked on myself this last year or two, is don't worry about what everybody else is doing. And that's business or personal. It doesn't matter. It's not about what they're doing. It's about what's going to work for you and what's going to be consistent for you. And this is, again, financially speaking and business speaking, it will all work. So don't let that mind circus, to use your words, like get in you, because it will. And that will stop you from taking steps forward, period. That's exactly what I would tell her.
That is so good. And it's so easy with Instagram, TikTok, Facebook to just fall down that rabbit hole of looking at what other people are doing. And it's easy to take someone else's goal and make it your goal. I've fallen prey to this. I mean, just because someone else is doing it in their business doesn't mean you should do it. Same with their life. Just because they're doing this in their life doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
So I think
Not
that is,
easy though.
no, it is not. And
Simple, but not easy.
well, and I really, you and I talk about this all the time. I have to limit my social media consumption because of this fact. And,
Mhm.
if you got to do what you got to do. So if that means you're not on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram to guard that part of your mind circus, then so be it. But I think that is a great piece of advice. And it's so easy to compare. So I know you're a voracious reader. What book has been most instrumental to you? And maybe you don't have to limit it to one, maybe, your
Um,
top two. What has been most instrumental to you as a business owner?
okay. So I'm going to go with two. The two most impactful that I can say on the top of my head are Profit First, of which I became a Profit First professional in 2019, to really be able to dig into that and help people. And we've now helped over hundreds of people with their finances using Profit First as a system, not the only system. It's not the only thing that matters. And the second book is The Psychology of Money that I mentioned earlier. It's an easy read. So it is not geared towards financial professionals. It's geared towards everyday Joe. It's very simple to read. I think it strongly makes some points that other books have tried to make and maybe fell a little bit short. People who are not readers tell me they finished it in days, which is, to me, very powerful. Yeah, and it just always sticks out in my mind. I'm like, that is a really great book. I wish I read it 6 years before I did.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to add that to my list for sure.
Yes. Yes.
So last question, last question for you is, oh, it's a Friday night, you and Dave, the kids, let's say the kids are in bed. What is your go-to on Netflix, or is it a documentary? Is it true crime? What is your go-to? And I know you and I both don't watch a lot of TV, but say you have a half an hour to sit down and watch TV. What are you tuning into?
Oh gosh, that changes all the time. And if it's Dave and I doing it together, there's a fight. He's a documentary guy all the way. All he loves documentaries, lives for them. I like a good romance series, something like Firefly Lane or like something dummy. Just
Chick,
turn off your
chick,
brain.
a chick flick kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So depends if we're watching together or and we do. We really are not that couple that like will separate rooms very often. Like we don't see each other enough as it is, we feel. So like why do that? But yeah, it depends on who wins.
I know we have the same conversation in our house. Chick flicks never win. Those are
Yeah,
ones I'm staying up and watching by myself.
same here. More often than not when I do.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for this conversation. It was great. I can't wait to pick up that book. I can't wait to listen to this podcast again. Where
Yes.
can people find you?
Thank you again, Karen. It was fantastic. So financialfitnesscoaching.com is my website. And pretty much can get redirected from everywhere. Social media wise, we active on Instagram. I'll say we're on all your major platforms except for TikTok, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, whatever, but active on Instagram there. So also financial.fitness.coaching.
Yeah, and I know I have to say I don't look at a lot of Instagram stories, but I always try and catch yours because it's just a glimpse in not only into your life and the life that you've built with your kids, but also you give great tips away on your stories. So
Thank you. I try. I
yeah,
try to
very
make them
well done.
unique, so you want to watch them, right?
Yeah, and you actually have a great monthly newsletter as well.
Thank you. Yes.
It goes out. And
Every
so
third week of the month, pretty much for the month. It wraps up our blogs. It wraps up tip, 5 tips for a specific topic for the month. And kind of a focus point, and then just what's happening in our news. Like it's not like a sales page, it's just what is going on at Financial Fitness. If we are launching something, hiring on a wait list, not wide open, that kind of stuff.
so if people go to your website, they can just sign up to get your newsletter there.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That is fantastic. Well, thanks again so much for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Karen. It was great talking with you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mind Circus. I'd love for you to share this episode and inspire someone else to become the ringmaster of their Mind Circus. I'm thrilled to announce that I'm now offering one-to-one business coaching. In addition to becoming the ringmaster of my own Mind Circus, I've learned a lot of business strategies being an entrepreneur for over a decade. If you're interested in one-to-one coaching, head over to my website, KarenBartosCoaching.com, and schedule a call. That's KarenBartosCoaching.com. Until next time, keep taming that mind circus.